So the answer to what now is this. For those of you who've been following along at home, at Pro Tour Born of the Gods, we had Zac Hill look at the first pick of all 8 players in Friday's draft viewer. That went reasonably well, except they all seem to be picking gods and planeswalkers and more gods and Breemazes and mythics and planeswalkers and gods. Honestly, we just felt we were giving Zac too easy a time. So what now aims to fix this? What we're going to do is look at yesterday's draft viewer, which you can check every pick for all 8 players at the table, and we're going to show Zac the first pick of every player. But the question becomes, so what now? Here comes pick number 2. You know what you've been given to work with, what you've already got, your 1 card in front of you. What do they do next? What can they learn from what's missing from the pack? So it's essentially pick 2 of pack 1. And we're going over to the wall to Mr. Zac Hill. Ready to rock and roll, Mr. Zac?
I am always ready to rock and roll, Rich, and any genre of music you prefer. Let's get down to some booster draft right now.
Bit of Baroque chamber music then, a little string quartet from the 1690s maybe. As we kick off, on the top right is Mr. Wenzel Krautmann, a European Grand Prix winner. So why don't we take a look at what Wenzel Krautmann had first pick. So that was his opening booster. Zac, supply line cranes.
Yeah, and it's kind of a little bit hard to see on this. He's first picking supply line cranes. A lot of people say that's one of the best commons in the format. Certainly a lot of people say it's one of the best white commons. Other things in the pack, really quick, Eidolon of Blossoms, Disciple of Deceit if you're willing to commit early, Quarry Colossus, but he goes with the cranes for the first pick.
Right, so he's got supply line cranes. Let's move along and ask the question, so what now?
All right, so you know you're in white. You're not just in white, you're actually in double white. So it's a pretty strong commitment. You see this pack, you've got Flurry of Horns, one of the more powerful commons in the set. Card advantage, 2/3, haste, comes out of the gates pretty fast. Cloak Siren, one of your premier cards. Again, it's a 3/2 flyer for 4. Really good anyway, and it has flash so you can keep your mana open. Horizon Chimera, gold card, one of the highest picks in Theros, almost exactly the same card. Other things, Nyx Infusion, decent removal spell. Armament of Nyx, not bad. Can either neutralize your opponent's creature or give you yours. Card I'm really excited about the most here though, Warwing Siren. 1/3 flying, heroic for 3, really similar to Wingsteed Rider, which is consensus probably either the best or second best common in Theros. Rich, I'm looking at Warwing Siren here, going into a blue-white kind of flying creatures deck.
All right, let's see what Wenzel Krautmann did. So what now? He took the Warwing Siren, the blue Wingsteed Rider, as it were. So that was his pick 2. Right, let's get back to the table. Wenzel Krautmann was up at 1, and number 2 is Jeremy Desani, the #1 player in the world. And Zac, as you can see there, he took Banishing Light, pick 1.
Yeah, I think Banishing Light, a card that you're really likely to see picked very early. It's a quality removal spell, it's an enchantment, it's in white, which is a really strong color. So we got Banishing Light out of this.
All right, so what now? Let's see his pick number 2. This is what he has to work with.
This is a pick that you're really excited to see. I mean, you know, as the pack 1 for the previous set, you got Quarry Colossus, card advantage, tempo advantage in that color. Really strong card. But the card that I am excited about the most right here is Eidolon of Blossoms. Eidolon of Blossoms, great 4-mana card drawing spell. It's got a 2/2 for 4, and whenever you cast an enchantment, you draw a card. You've already got a great enchantment in Banishing Light. Curves nicely 3 into 4 to set up your Blossoms to untap, or if you draw it later, it kills a creature and draws a card, putting you up a ton of cards. I really like, Rich, the Eidolon of Blossoms pick here. I guess the other cards you're looking at are Starfall, Nyx Infusion, but I think Eidolon of Blossoms, when you get past that card, you have to say that's a clear signal.
Okay, now I have a question for you. On the basis you cannot answer with the words, because his brains dribbled out of his ears overnight and he left them on the pillow, why didn't Wenzel Krautmann pick the Eidolon of Blossoms that you like so much as his first pick over Supply Line Cranes?
I've got to think, Rich, that it's just a color preference issue. A lot of people like white in the set. Supply Line Cranes, you know, at worst is a 3/5 flyer. That is a huge creature. Also, you can get some tempo advantage. I mean, Supply Line Cranes is not a bad card by any stretch of the imagination. I just think Eidolon takes over games by itself. So I would guess that's probably a color preference issue.
All right, so as we head on round the table, next up on our list is Mr. Guillaume Waffa-Tapper. That's who we're going to take a look at in just a moment. Former Pro Tour champion, of course. So there's Desani. Let's see what he did in fact pick. Desani picked 2. Did he take Eidolon of Blossoms? Did he take the Eidolon?
The suspense is killing me.
Come on. Yes, there we go. He did. All right.
We did it.
On we go.
2 for
Guillaume,
2 so far.
2 for 2.
Keep track of this, Rich. I know you like to keep track of when you're right and I'm wrong.
I just assume that's automatic.
Right.
Guillaume Waffa-Tapper is next round the table, the French former champion from Yokohama 2007. His first pick was a sigiled starfish. Of course it was. It was blue.
Yeah, it's a blue card. It's like the most Guillaume Waffa-Tapper card ever. You get to sit around doing nothing, improving the quality of your draws. Waffa-Tapper's been doing that for about 12 years and top 8ing Pro Tours as a result of it. So I am not surprised at all to see him take sigiled starfish.
All right, so the question becomes, so what now? Let's see his pack 2.
All right, so you've got a lot of really quality blue spells here. You've got Scourge of Fleets. Basically, it's a huge creature that bounces your entire opponent's side of the board. Basically, as many creatures that have a casting cost equal or to or lesser than the number of islands you have, if you're base blue, that basically makes your opponent pick up his or her board. Really, really powerful. You see, again, Cloak Siren, which we already talked about. But, you know, if I'm getting out of blue, I'm looking very seriously at this Riddle of Lightning here. Blue-red, one of the weakest archetypes in Triple Theros. A lot of pro players saying it's become one of the best archetypes. And when you're already scrying with a card like Sigiled Starfish, Riddle of Lightning gives you great deck selection and can be a very powerful removal spell. The final thing I'll bring up is just a second Sigiled Starfish. You've already got one, you say that's what you want to do. I can see picking another one. I'm split between Scourge of Fleets and Starfish. I like Riddle, but I don't want to split colors. I'm going to go with Starfish here.
Okay, I want to just ask you, are you concerned, having watched you with Rashad going through Josh Utter-Layton's double red, double green early deck, are you concerned picking the double red Riddle as early as pick 2?
I hate having a bad mana base. In fact, I love being 10 of one basic land, 7 or another in this set. So it's definitely a concern. The thing is, if you're blue-red, one of the things the deck is great at, or the strategy is great at, is controlling the quality of its draws. I mean, you see Sigiled Starfish, you can literally do that with that particular card. There's a lot of other scry in that. So in blue-red, I tend to be less worried than I am otherwise, but I mean, it's definitely a concern. What you want to avoid is having double-colored, you know, CC, DD, that's what we call it, you know, red-red or blue-blue, red-red or whatever, as we saw with Josh, red-red and green-green. You don't want both of those mana costs in the same deck if you can avoid it. So
and
what I do is...
especially not at 2, where it's Swordwise Centaur, green-green, Searing Blood, red-red.
Exactly.
Okay,
so I'm not that worried about it.
All right, let's see whether he solved the riddle with a riddle, whether he went down the Starfish route or went somewhere else. Waffa-Tapper, what did you pick second? Starfish. All right, good to know. Let's get back to our table. We began with Wenzel Krautmann, then we came round to Jeremy Desani, who got the Eidolon of Blossoms from Krautmann. Guillaume Waffa-Tapper picks up Starfish number 2. We go to a Hall of Famer, Bob Marr Jr. So let's take a look at his first pick, and from that first pack, he ends up with a Spire Spine, +4/+1.
Yeah, Spire Spine, a card, you know, we haven't seen the ability card name must block very much before. Doesn't come up that often, except the turn you cast it, you kind of have to force the trade. In general, 4/1 for 3, really good rate, and the fact that you can bestow it for just 5 mana, that's a lot of damage. I mean, Spire Spine, clearly understandable first pick.
Okay, so let's see what his choices are. So what now, pick 2?
All right, so obviously, as you see the theme, you're probably looking at the green cards first. You see Fury's Band War Chief, 3/3 Vigilance Trample for 4, already not bad. If you have any other Centaurs, that card can make them bigger. Really like that card. You go outside of green, or you say Market Festival, it's okay, not that exciting. Colossal Heroics, really, really good. That's a card I'm definitely looking at to pick early. But you know, it's a combat trick. You'll find a lot of combat tricks. It can go wide. It's only 2 damage. Not quite an overrun, which is something that we're used to seeing as high early combat tricks.
So does the War Chief look pretty straightforward to you here?
It really doesn't. I like Hubris a lot. I think in terms of just raw card quality, you've got Hubris here, one of the best commons in the format. You've got Flurry of Horns over here, another excellent common. But then I'm really looking at Gnarled Scarhide. I think that card is just unbelievable. You get a 1-mana 2-power creature, you get to bestow it for just 4 mana. The fact that it can't block you don't really care about because you're attacking most of the time. So I think I might actually switch colors for the Gnarled Scarhide. I'd say the second pick, probably staying on color with Theory's Banned War Chief.
All right, let's see what Bob Marr actually did with his second pick. And it was Hubris. Okay. Now, it is worth saying that Bob Marr ended up 0-3 in this draft. Not because of that pick, presumably, but he did not fare well at this table. Let's get back to our table. We're halfway round, and pairings are going up for the round. So we'll belt on through. We've seen Krautman, Dazani, Wafatapa, and Marr. That is a phenomenal run of players. Next up is Alex Galdan of the Russian Federation, played at the World Magic Cup in 2013. This is his first individual Pro Tour, and his first individual Pro Tour pick was a Fleet Feather Cockatrice.
Yeah, really powerful card. The only downside to Fleet Feather is it's a gold card, so it's a really strong color commitment early, but one of the best cards in the format. So he's basically coming in with a plan, probably trying to commit to it.
All right. I imagine you are nervous by the green and blue in one pick.
Yeah, I don't like that at all, but you know, it's just a personal preference thing. I like to try and stay open in the format. Now that said, green-blue, a lot of the major teams here, it's their favorite color combination. So if you're gonna pick a color, that might be the one you go with, but it is very dangerous to commit to gold this early.
All right, let's move along and see what he's confronted with. So, what now?
Well, this is one of the reasons that, in fact, taking gold early can be pretty risky. You look in green-blue, you've got Fawn of Fertility, okay, not that great. Satyr Grove Dancer, again, you play it, not wonderful. Rise of Eagles, you play it, not wonderful. Golden Hide Ox, you know, it's 6 mana. You can do a lot of things with 6 mana in the format. You're certainly not taking countermand early. In general, I think the most powerful cards in the pack, Cast into Darkness, quality removal spell. Supply Line Cranes, we saw people first pick it. Revel of the Fallen God, amazing if you can cast it, but 7's a lot of mana. I think you basically just say, okay, whatever, I'm gonna either go green-blue if it's open, or I'm just gonna start over with a really quality pick. I go for Supply Line Cranes right here.
All right, let's see whether Galdan agrees. Okay. Font of Fertility is where he went. So he wants to go blue-green, and he says this will help. Fair enough. That was Alex Galdan. We have 3 more players to show you. And next up round our Table of Doom is Josh Taylor. Josh had played 1 Pro Tour before this at Berlin in 2008. A 1-4 record there. Fared much better yesterday. Let's see what his opening pack looked like. And he took a Supply Line Cranes from that pack.
We're seeing a theme, a lot of Supply Line Cranes being taken, and in fact, that's one of the downsides of switching into it, which is the thing that I just talked about. If everybody else is first picking white cards, white is gonna dry up real fast.
All right, so let's see what pick number 2 is for him. That's what he has to choose from. So what now?
All right, so your white is not really there. You've got Moral Obstinacy, which is fine, but you really don't want to be second picking it. You got Fawn of Vigor, basically unplayable. The cards I'm looking at, I love Sigiled Starfish. We already talked about how good that card is. Blood Crazed Hoplite, I think a premier card. 2-power heroic creature for just 2 mana. Really excellent against other heroic decks. Sets you up for a good white-black aggressive deck. Blade Tusk Boar, really awesome card. I don't like pairing it with my Supply Line Cranes because I want my white-red decks to be fast and lean. Not really expensive starting out with a 5-drop into a 4-drop. That said, you can certainly do it. This pack, in general, not that exciting. The other card you look at is Thoughtrender Lamia here, but I just don't like starting out that expensive. Rich, I think I go for the Blood Crazed Hoplite. Not very excited about it, though.
All right, let's see what Josh Taylor did with his second pick. He went down the Starfish route. So what do you think's happening there?
I think I'm actually wrong. I didn't remember. I thought the Starfish was the previous set. Yeah, I think Starfish is just the highest quality card here. You just go blue-white, again, flyers. You stall up the ground with a Starfish, get to your late game with a tempo spells. Yeah, Starfish, it makes perfect sense here. It's also just probably one of the highest quality cards in the pack. So that's one that I disagree with myself on. I think you take Starfish here.
Okay, it's always good when you're both right and wrong simultaneously.
Yeah, I'll just have my cake and eat it too.
Fair. All right, let's move on. Round the table, we have 2 more players to show you. Next up is from Brazil, 4 Pro Tour top 8s to his name, Mr. Willie Adel, head of the Adel Geniuses. Let's see how he opened up his draft 1. And from that pack, he has gone with the Fellhide Petrifier.
So there's a lot going on with this first pick. You see Fleet Feather Cockatrice here. He elects not to pick it even though it's insanely powerful. You've got Warwing Siren, another really good card, but it's kind of fighting with the Cockatrice, the Golden Hind up here, one of the best commons in the format, and Battlefield Thaumaturge. So what I think Willie's doing here is saying, I do not want to be a part of this green fight. I don't want to be a part of this blue fight. Fellhide Petrifier, 2/3 Death Touch for 3 with a pretty big upside. I think you're just saying, look, I want to do something very different from what other people are going to be fighting for in this pack.
Before we move on, is he looking at that pack and just reading the creature type on Pensive Minotaur and going, I'm getting that back 9th because I'm the only person who's going to want it?
For the Fellhide Minotaur?
Yeah, no, because he's got the Fellhide Petrifier, and now there's the Pensive Minotaur underneath that's going to come back. Is he looking for that 9th?
I think you absolutely are. I think that, it's very unlikely that anybody else is going to be picking that Pensive Minotaur higher. You, of course, can't guarantee that you're getting it back, but it's certainly very relevant when you pick a tribal lord of the same tribe right before that. And, of course, Death Touch, a very good ability on 2/3s, because, they play defense early, and then you're able to power through anything they block or block and kill anything. So, yeah, I think that's definitely salient to this pick.
Okay, so here comes pick 2. So for Willie Adel, what now?
All right, so you're only taking a black card. That said, Minotaurs are frequently a black-red deck because of the powerful tribal lords in Born of the Gods, and especially with Krogma Warcaller in Theros. So I think it's not quite gold because a 3-mana 2/3 Death Touch is fine, but I think you have a little bit of a tendency toward red. Because of that, I'm looking very hard at this Blade Tusk Boar. Again, one of the best red commons, just a really solid overall evasive card. Curves nicely into your Petrifier. Nessian Game Warden, one of the most powerful cards in the pack. It's a 4/5 for 5, good already. Almost always generates card advantage. I think Font of Fertility, perfectly reasonable pick. Eidolon of the Great Revel you can do, but I think Boar is better. And Rotted Hulk, Lambads on color, but just not particularly good cards. Rich, I think you go for Blade Tusk Boar here.
I'm very worried because I agree, and generally if I'm making a pick, I assume it's going to be wrong, but I would go with Blade Tusk Boar. Let's see what Willie Adel did next. Ta-da! We win. We shoot, we score. Blade Tusk Boar is the answer. So, back to our table. We've gone almost all the way around, and finally, making his debut here at Pro Tour Journey into Nyx, Stephen Dyckman. He is about to pass to Wenzel Krautmann. Let's see what Dyckman opened and what he took. Wow, it's potentially a constructed card, Master of the Feast.
So, I mean, yeah, Master of the Feast, obviously you look at it, it's a 3-mana 5/5 flying creature. Obviously a very powerful card. Now the drawback is, on your turn, you give your opponent an extra card. Why that's dangerous is not only because you give your opponent card advantage, but because the Master is an enchantment, there's a lot of ways to remove it. And when he gets killed, if he gets killed, that's bad news for you. That said, he's also killing your opponent with 5 damage in the air. So I think Master of the Feast, a non-zero amount of this is your first Pro Tour. You've got to get a little bit lucky to win. You've got to get a lot lucky to 3-0 the pod. You might as well just play cards and force your opponent to deal with them. It's a pretty good card overall. So for all of those reasons, I can understand completely the Master pick.
All right, so on we go. Dyckman's second pick. So what now?
All right, so again, looking at the pack, you've got this really powerful Golden Hind here, Risky, though, to take a 2-mana green creature into a 3-mana black creature, and you do not want to abandon your Master of the Feast this early, in my opinion. In black, you've got Bloodcraze Hoplite, really powerful card, one of black's best cards. You've got Return Reveler, a lot worse than the Hoplite. You've got Thoughtrender Lamia here. Enters the battlefield, makes them discard a card. Whenever you play an enchantment, they have to discard a card. It sort of helps you stay on your enchantment theme. If you are going to play Master of the Feast, I think you need to be very aggressive. I don't think you're looking to abandon colors into Fleet Feather Cockatrice here. I think that's kind of all over the place and pretty risky. I think you want to curve your Bloodcrazed Hoplite into your demon, put a lot of pressure on the opponent. I think you're not trying for the late game of Thoughtrender Lamia here because, the cards are at cross purposes with each other. So I go for the Hoplite in this pack.
Let's see what Dyckman does with his pack 2. Oh, he went with Warwing Siren and looks like he's heading down a black-blue path. Zach, get over here. I've got some bad news for you. Come have a seat. So the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we can talk about pick 1 and pick 2 and pick 3, but do you know why we love Magic so much? It's because we will never have all the answers. So however often we ask it, the question's always going to be, so what now?